I watched my best friend walk down the aisle to marry husband number 3 when she was 71 years old. She looked radiant in a cream-colored silk dress, surrounded by more lilies and roses than a botanical garden. But as the music swelled and they exchanged those familiar vows, I wasn't looking at the bride. I was looking at her daughter, sitting in the very front row. She was crying, and let me tell you, those were not tears of joy. Those were tears of a woman who could already see the freight train coming down the tracks. 18 months later, I stood in that same chapel, but the atmosphere was chillingly different. Different flowers, same daughter, still crying, only this time she was mourning a man she barely knew while her mother stared into a financial abyss. Between that white dress wedding and that black suit funeral, my friend spent every single penny she had worked 40 years to save. She didn't just spend it on comfort, she spent it on survival. She paid his mounting medical bills, she sold her own mother's heirloom jewelry to cover specialists, and eventually, she did the unthinkable. She took out a reverse mortgage on the house she had owned free and clear for 3 decades. He died and left everything, every single asset, every piece of property, and every cent of his remaining pension, to a son from marriage number 1. A son who showed up to the funeral driving a brand new truck that my friend's sacrifice had effectively paid for. He didn't even offer her a nod of acknowledgement during the service. He just sat in the back, checking his watch, waiting for the lawyer to finish reading the will so he could claim his prize. 6 months after the funeral, my friend lost her home. At 73 years old, she now sleeps in her daughter's guest room, surrounded by boxes of a life she no longer owns. She has no place to call hers. My name is May. I am 88 years old, and I have lived long enough to see the patterns that younger eyes miss. I am about to give you 5 reasons why you should never, under any circumstances, remarry after the age of 60. This isn't because I believe love is dead or because I've grown bitter in my twilight years. It's because by the time you hit 60, you have finally earned the sacred right to stop sacrificing your soul on someone else's altar. This isn't typical romance advice you'd find in a magazine. This is a manual for financial and emotional survival for women who have already given more than enough to the world. The first reason is the one that people whisper about behind closed doors but never dare to say at a dinner party. Men our age aren't looking for partners, they are looking for nurses with benefits. I've watched this exact tragedy play out 3 times in my own social circle. These were smart, vibrant, independent women, women who traveled, women who had hobbies, women who were finally free. But they were convinced that this time would be different. He seemed so healthy, didn't he? He said all the right things, he took them to nice dinners, and he looked at them with that specific kind of need that we often mistake for deep romantic interest. But within 3 years, every single one of those women transitioned from a new bride to a full-time, unpaid medical administrator. Their days became a blur of managing complex medication schedules, coordinating with specialists, driving to endless doctor appointments, and researching experimental treatments. They became the primary caregivers for men they barely knew a few years prior. And here is the part that truly makes my blood boil. The moment a new wife enters the picture, the man's grown children, adults who should be stepping up, miraculously disappear. They step back the second they see a woman wearing a wedding ring, assuming she's taken over the job. None of those women signed up for hospice duty. They signed up for companionship, maybe a bit of travel, and someone to share a sunset with. Instead, they got a second career with no salary, no benefits, and absolutely no days off. One friend told me she hasn't slept a full 4 hours in 2 years because he needs help every few hours. She looks 20 years older than she is. Exhausted doesn't even begin to describe the hollow look in her eyes. And when the end finally comes, the children reappear like vultures circling a kill, ready to claim the estate while the new wife is left holding nothing but a stack of medical invoices. Reason number 2 involves the dangerous math of a blended family. Your money becomes our money, but his children stay his children. On paper, the idea of blending families in your 60s sounds like a beautiful Hallmark movie. In practice, it is a legal and emotional nightmare that can strip you of your security. You bring your house, he brings his pension, and you think you've doubled your safety net. But then you realize his children are watching every dollar you spend as if you are personally embezzling their inheritance. I knew a woman who bought her new husband a modest watch for his birthday. It cost $60. His daughter confronted her at Christmas, accusing her of taking advantage of an aging man's resources. $60. Meanwhile, that same husband was quietly paying $800 a month toward his grown son's mortgage, calling it helping family. When she dared to suggest they should perhaps budget more carefully, his answer was a cold, sharp, "That's my son." In that world, her money was communal property, but his money was reserved for his real family. You don't get a new family when you remarry late in life. You get a set of expenses, a gallery of suspicious side eyes, and a lifetime of whispered conversations that stop the second you walk into the room. You become a guest in your own marriage, constantly having to justify your existence to people who view you as a budget line item. I want to pause here and ask you, and be honest, are you thinking about remarrying? Or do you have a friend who is currently being swept off her feet by a lovely gentleman? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts, because we need to talk about this before more of us lose our hard-earned peace. The third reason is one that breaks my heart because it involves the loss of the only people who truly understand you, your friends. It sounds dramatic, I know, but it's a reality I've seen time and again. The moment you put that ring on, your social structure shifts in a way you can't anticipate. Your widow friends, the women who were your lifeline when your first husband passed, often feel a quiet sense of betrayal. It's as if you've broken ranks, choosing to return to the world of couples and leaving behind the sisterhood you built in the trenches of grief. They stop calling. The invitations to the Thursday lunch group start to dwindle. You are suddenly half of a couple again in a circle of women who were thriving in their independence. On the other side of the coin, his friends will only ever tolerate you. To them, you are the replacement. They knew the first wife for 40 years, maybe they even liked the second one. They have no emotional energy left to learn your stories, to listen to your history, or to genuinely laugh at your jokes. You become like a piece of furniture in his life, present, but not really part of the scene. I watched a woman's entire social circle, friendships that had survived decades of trials, simply evaporate within 2 years of her remarrying. Book clubs found reasons why she didn't fit anymore. Garden circles moved their meetings. And when that second marriage eventually crumbled under the weight of illness and family drama, those same women didn't pick up the phone. You traded a fortress of female friendship for a single, fragile relationship, and that is a bad trade every single time. Fourth, and let's be very blunt here, you already raised one man. Why on earth would you want to train another one? Listen to me very carefully. Men in their 70s and 80s are not works in progress. They are set in their ways like reinforced concrete. If a man hasn't learned how to properly wash a dish, run a vacuum, or manage his own laundry by the time he's 70, you aren't going to be the one to teach him. You are simply going to be the one doing it for him for whatever years you have left. Do you really want to spend your final good years, those years when your health is still holding up, picking up someone else's socks? Do you want to spend your afternoons cooking specific meals for someone who complains that the salt is off or the meat is too tough? You'll find yourself smiling tightly through the same story you've heard 40 times, while your own stories get interrupted or dismissed. I spent 41 years married to a good man. I loved him, I buried him, and I grieved for him properly. But after the fog of loss cleared, I discovered something magical. My house stays exactly how I leave it. If I want cereal for dinner at 9 p.m. while sitting in my pajamas, I have it. I watch my programs without having to negotiate for the remote. I go to bed when I'm tired and I wake up when I'm done sleeping. Nobody is managing my time but me. That isn't loneliness, that is the purest form of peace. And that peace is worth more than any companionship that requires you to hand over your autonomy. Finally, the fifth reason is the one they never warn you about until the ink is dry on the marriage license. You will likely die taking care of him, and he will die leaving everything to them. Statistically, we know that women live longer than men. Statistically, you will end up widowed a second time. And statistically, after you have spent your remaining health and your hard-earned savings keeping him alive, his estate will bypass you entirely and go to his children. You will be left with nothing but medical debt, physical exhaustion, and a broken heart. I am not being cynical. I am reading you the script of a horror movie that I've watched repeat with different actors but the same tragic ending. Think about where you are right now. You are 65, or 70, or perhaps 75. You have survived everything life has thrown at you. You've said the hardest goodbyes, you've raised children into adults, you've worked demanding jobs, and you've finally paid off the roof over your head. You have earned your rest. You have earned your silence. Most importantly, you have earned the right to be entirely selfish with your time, your money, and your energy. Why would you hand that hard-won freedom over to a man whose children are already mentally measuring your curtains and deciding what to do with your furniture the moment you're gone? Romance is a beautiful thing, and companionship is a basic human need. But marriage after 60, for a woman, is a legal contract that almost always benefits everyone except the woman herself. If you want companionship, go on dates. If you want adventure, travel together. Spend time, share meals, enjoy each other's company, but keep your name on your house, keep your money in your own account, and keep your life under your absolute control. The second you say I do, you are signing up for complications that love, no matter how sincere, cannot fix. Now, I know there are exceptions. I know there are remarriages that work out beautifully, where both partners find a true equal and it adds years of joy to their lives. I'm not saying it's an absolute impossibility. What I am saying is that the odds are stacked heavily against you, and the cost of being wrong is everything you have spent a lifetime building. I am 88 years old. I have been a widow for 22 years, and I can say with total confidence that I have never been happier or more free. My money is mine. My time is mine. My house is mine. No one's children are waiting for me to pass so they can claim the life I built. That isn't a sad story, that is a victory. If this old woman just saved you from a mistake you were about to make in the name of not being alone, then do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this with a friend who is talking about her new boyfriend as if he's the solution to her life instead of a massive complication. And subscribe to this channel, because I have more truths to tell, and I don't have enough time left to sugarcoat them for anyone. Your life is yours, keep it that way.